Hello and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Kathy Healey. So I'm really excited to introduce you to my first guest. She is the Superintendent of Wakefield Public Schools, Dr. Kim Smith.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show. I'm glad you could come and join us today. So I wanted to start with talking about where you grew up. So if you could tell us where you grew up and what high school you went to.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Norwood, Massachusetts, where I actually still live there today.
Okay.
That was my hometown, so I went through the Norwood public school system and graduated from Norwood High School.
Okay.
We had a tremendous music program in Norwood, which was kind of the beginning or sowed the seeds of what I eventually decided to do, which was to become a music educator. So,
Right. Well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So you knew your career path even back then at Norwood High.
You know, I did. Even earlier than that, when I was in elementary school, I think I really dreamed of being a teacher from as long as I can remember. As a very little girl, I think it was maybe in high school as I really got involved in the music program that I started thinking about becoming a band director. I said, you know, music is what I want to teach. And it was a real passion of mine. So I was very involved then, and it really just, I had my eyes on being a teacher from as long as I can remember.
So you were in the band in high school?
I was,
Okay.
yes.
What did you play? What was your instrument?
So I started on clarinet when I was really young, in 4th grade, and then eventually picked up trumpet as well, which is a really interesting combination, an unusual one, but I played clarinet and trumpet throughout high school, eventually picked up saxophone, and then as I went on to college, those were really my 3 principal instruments, so clarinet, saxophone, and trumpet.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And where did you go to college?
So I did my undergrad at the University of New Hampshire.
Okay.
They had then and now, they have a fantastic music education program. And we used to travel up there for their annual jazz festival, and I was really interested in jazz education. So it just seemed like a perfect fit for me. So that's where I did my undergrad. Much later, and maybe as we talk about, you know, later years, I did go to Boston College for my master's degree and then eventually for my doctorate.
Okay. So your undergrad is in music education?
Music ed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to BC and got your master's in counseling psychology?
I did, actually,
Okay. Why don't you
yes.
tell us about that? Were you going to be a guidance counselor?
Well, not exactly, but you may or may not recall, most people are probably too young to remember this, but in the early 1980s, it was a really tenuous time for teachers because there were a lot of layoffs. Proposition 2.5 had just come into play. And I remember in the late 80s, you know, every year, I think we were all worried, the youngest teachers, that we may or may not have employment, you know, moving forward. So at that time, I wanted to pursue my master's degree. So I was looking for a companion degree, something I thought that either would really help me as a teacher, or if teaching just didn't work out, and then I would have another career path that was kind of related, which was working with young people. So I ended up getting my master's in counseling psychology, specifically with adolescents. And even though I never became a counselor, I would say it absolutely really enhanced my profession as a teacher, working with kids.
That's good thinking.
Yeah.
And then your PhD is in?
So it's actually an EDD, which is just a little bit different. It's an education doctorate, and it's in education administration. And really, sometimes people wonder what the difference is between a PhD and EDD. And the primary difference is that PhD is like more of a theoretical study, where an EDD is usually based in real-time practice. So all the people that were in the EDD program were currently principals or superintendents, or, you know, kind of based in job practice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where did you start teaching? Was it in Norwood? Or?
It was.
Okay.
I started my career. I graduated from UNH in the spring of 1983, and that fall I got a teaching job, and actually at the time it was a .6 position at the middle school in my hometown, in the program that I had worked with growing up. So I just took a shot at it, and I got my foot in the door. So I taught for 3 years in middle school in the Norwood public school system. So as a middle school band director. But even then, I knew I wanted to be a high school band director. That's really where my heart was. So I was really kind of getting my feet wet in a program that I was really familiar with, built a few skills, kind of got my resume going. But as early as my second year, I was kind of looking around to see if any of the high school jobs were opening, and I had my eyes out for it. And that finally occurred in Wakefield.
Okay.
So,
and what year was that you came to Wakefield High?
1986, 1987. So it was a long time ago. I know,
that is.
a long time ago. And I just feel like I was such a young kid when I came in. But I had this dream that I wanted to, and it's interesting because it has largely come true that I had this sort of dream that I wanted to give my professional career to find a great community and give my professional career to that community. I was really a big believer in perseverance and longevity in terms of building a music program. So I said, I want to go and commit somewhere, and I just wanted to find the right place. I interviewed at some different places, but I was really intrigued by Wakefield. I just have this memory of driving in by the lake,
The lake got
first
you.
time, and it really drew me in, and I said, oh, I like this place.
Oh boy, well we were lucky to have you.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
that's
very
for sure.
lucky to find Wakefield.
Yeah. Now, what was the hardest part about teaching in your?
The hardest part about teaching. So I think probably most teachers would agree with me that the hardest part of teaching is the fact that you're always on. Every day, all day long. It doesn't matter if you're not feeling that well, or you're really tired, or there's really it's like being on stage, right? With your students. If you're an elementary school teacher, it would be, you've got this group of kids all day in front of you, and you're teaching, and you're and a lot of energy and motivating them. If you're a middle school or high school teacher, every 45 minutes or an hour, a new crop of kids are coming in that next class, and you just have to be on. So, I mean, it's a wonderful challenge, but it's a challenge. Like people maybe underestimate how the level of energy and fatigue.
We need our vacations.
Absolutely, but like I say, it's a wonderful challenge. But I would say that's the thing in teaching. That's and I know that even in my career, I never wanted to be out because and I think a lot of teachers feel this way. Just you're really important to your kids, and what you're doing is really important. So, oh gosh, I went years without having a day absent from school. It was just so unusual to ever be out, but I think that was partially due to how much I loved it, and I love teaching every minute of it.
What's the best part?
The best part of teaching, undoubtedly, is the students, of course. The kids are just great. I mean, and that's one thing, I've been in Wakefield for 32 years, and every year a new group of kids come in. They're so inspiring. Like just the relationships you build with kids. And it's I always say to people who are going into education, and I really encourage kids to go into it, it's such a quality of life profession because it's never boring. It's always exciting and fun, and just all of those relationships you develop, it's pretty incredible.
I want to talk a little bit about the marching band director position.
Sure.
So how did you bring a regular, ordinary marching band to extraordinary? Because that you did.
Yeah. So we were a very little marching band when I got here. My first year, I had less than 30 students, including the color guard. It was very, very small. It was kind of a little bit of a struggling program. But over the years, we built it, my students and I. I think if any of my students were here, they would say that they remembered I often talked about the culture of excellence, that if we wanted to be champions, that culture of excellence started the first day we got to marching band camp in August, and it was every day the work ethic from rehearsal to rehearsal, from day to day. Everything that we did, we had a very, very high standard for ourselves. And I always said the big three were you come on time, come prepared, and strive for excellence. And I think we did that together, and that just became the culture of how we lived. And I know that I've talked to the teachers in Wakefield long beyond my music career, that the biggest takeaway from that whole period of time, I was the band director for 18 years, and we won a lot of state championships during that time. It was a great, great period of my life and my students' life. The biggest takeaway is that students will always rise to the level of expectations you set for them. So it amazed me. I mean, the higher the bar I would set for them, the more they would just go and get it. And so I just kept raising it, and they just got better and better. And but I think that that's true across the board. That kids will rise to whatever level that you set for them.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
And we had a lot of fun and a lot of great memories.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So what made you want to be an assistant principal? Because that's where you moved next.
Next,
yes.
Well, it's interesting. After 18 years in Wakefield and the 3 prior, so 21 years as a teacher, you kind of come to that midpoint and think, do I want to keep doing the same thing? Am I intrigued or inspired to do something else? And I think especially in maybe the last 5 years that I was a band director, I kept really thinking about how the kind of, really the culture of what we had developed in teaching and learning could really, be more broadly, exposed to other kids and other settings. And I started to be really intrigued with educational leadership in general. And I just wanted to just touch a wider audience, I think. And so at the time, there was a retiring assistant principal, and I said, you know what, I'll throw my hat in the ring, I'll see how it goes. And I did get the position, and it started this, embarked me on the next journey in my career, and I loved it. I became a high school administrator here at Wakefield Memorial High School for 10 years. That's when you and I really got to know one another. And I was the assistant principal for 5, and then the principal for 5. But it was really an extraordinary period of my life, and I loved every minute of it. I missed teaching, of course.
Did you miss teaching?
I did.
Yes.
I missed music. I could hear it down the hall, and I was always tempted to run in and say, "Can I help?" But that may not have been.
I was going to ask you that. You must have heard the music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's that little bit of a draw. But at the same time, I was, really excited about that next journey, and by that time, I was completely in love with both Wakefield and Wakefield Memorial High School. So it just felt like such a great fit to have the opportunity to lead. And I'll always say about administration, you go from being a teacher to a teacher leader. That's really all it is. I'll always be a teacher till the very last day I work. I'll always be a teacher. That's what it's all about. And I think you do need teacher leaders to be willing to step up and say, I'm to take that role. So, but it was a lot of fun, and I have some really extraordinary memories from that period of my life.
Now, as superintendent of schools, tell us what's the most challenging part of that, being a superintendent?
Well, it's kind of an unlikely, it's interesting as I was looking back, thinking about coming here and talking to you. At the beginning, in a million years, I never would have guessed. That I would be the superintendent of schools, right? I mean, when I was a band director, that's where my mind and heart was. It's funny how things evolve, and I always just say to young people, just keep going with your journey and your passion, and you never know where it will lead you. But that really came, just an interesting point again in my career where I think I thought about, and I'll answer your question. I think you asked about challenge, but this is in my mind, so I'll just say kind of how I got there first. But in the music program, I realized how critically important it was at the high school level, that foundation and what came before it, and the synergy from K to 12 and developing young musicians and all of that, right? Yeah. So similarly, when I became the principal of Wakefield High School, I really became more compelled to look at what was happening at the Galpin Middle School, what was happening at the elementary schools, and how the whole piece fits together. And so in that last kind of, knowing I was kind of winding down in my career, I just looked at the opportunity to become a district leader, and again, somewhat unexpected, but I jumped in and gave it a try.
That's great.
But I think you originally asked about my challenges.
Yes.
Do you want me to answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Just on the challenge piece, you make a lot of very complex decisions on a regular basis.
Yes.
So that's always the hardest piece, because you just, but I always try to make the decisions that I believe are in the best interest of the children of the Wakefield Public Schools, and that's it.
And one last question is, I'm sad to hear that you're going to be retiring. What are your plans for retirement?
A lot of people are asking me that right now. Yeah. So this ends 35 years at the end of this year. I'm honestly thinking a lot about next year being very restful, just enjoying myself, doing a lot of the kinds of things that I don't have time to do now because I'm working all the time. So many times I say, "Ooh, I'd like to do that or go there." So I'll probably do that. And then after that, I actually might consider a little bit of teaching at the college level, maybe do a little adjunct professor kind of work somewhere. Might be something kind of interesting to do.
Good for you. Great. Well, I thank you so much for coming
You
on
are
the show.
welcome.
I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping you can stick around for my next guest.
I absolutely will.
Great. That's terrific. So my next guest is a band called Cool Change. And I have two of the band members here today, Joni Brown-Ciccatelli and Michael Mazzola. They're going to come out and join us. Come on out.
Slide down.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Michael. Hi. Hi, come on. This is Dr. Kim Smith.
Nice to meet you.
Mazzola and Joni Brown-Ciccatelli. So thanks so much for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So I want to start by, Joni and I went to high school together right here at Wakefield High, class of 82.
Yeah, we did.
And Michael, where did you go to high school?
Reading High.
Reading High.
We don't
the
talk
Rockets.
about that.
He's a Rocket, yeah.
We don't talk about that.
So Joni, tell us about your high school experience, the people that,
My experience. Well, you know,
musicals?
well, we know about that. Actually, it's funny because I sang all through from 7th grade up until my senior year, and in which I had the lead in the senior play. And one of the kids that I went to school with forever said, "I didn't know you could sing like that." And I said, "Well, yeah, I can." You know, so basically they had a band and asked me to sing, and I think the first rock song I sang was "Don't Stop Believin'."
Oh, Journey, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. So
That's
I mean, but my high school experience was it was full of music. I think Miss Babikian did kick me out of chorus
Yeah.
my senior year, I think, because I was a bad influence on freshmen.
And Michael, you too, were you in your high school at Reading High, were you involved in music?
I was in the band my senior year.
Oh,
Played
okay.
the snare drum
Oh, okay.
and just started a band with my friends. From that point on, I've been playing since.
Oh, that's
So,
terrific. That's
yeah.
terrific. And where'd you guys go to college?
I went to, well, you know, I did more private study after, I mean, I went to the conservatory when I was in high school for piano and voice, and then I went, I studied privately with instructors in Boston, and then I went to Berkeley for a couple years, but, you know, I was playing, so I was happy, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
That's what I wanted to do, so I was already doing that, so I said, I'm just going to stop this school stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to go play.
And Michael, did you have
I just went from school right to
right to
playing
band?
bands.
That's terrific.
It's been the same since.
Yeah, that's great. And how did you guys meet?
Don't say the chloroform thing because it's not nice.
That was just
We met about 30 years ago, I think. Just
mutual friends.
we have like a huge music family, is what we have. And Michael and I met, I think I was 25, and he was in a band, and I was in a band. We were both doing weddings at the King's Grant in Danvers.
God.
And we met then, but we didn't get to play together until about 2003 and roundabout. So, you know, but we've been playing together ever since.
And most of your songs are they cover? You do have some originals.
We do. We,
okay.
you know, we're all. I mean, we have a big family, and Paul, my other guitar player, couldn't be here today because he's got one of those day jobs, and so he couldn't. He had meetings all day, but he and I have been playing together, and he's a Wakefield boy too. He's class of '78, Paul
right.
Shaba,
Yeah.
and we've done a lot of writing together. Michael writes. Our other bandmates, Bob Torelli, Ray Zirkle, they're our music family, and we all write our own stuff. But to make money, we have to play the covers.
Yeah.
So.
And you were in Nashville. When were you in Nashville playing at the Bluebird?
Last year,
Very impressive.
Ray and Paul and Bob and I went down, and I had written a song, and I said to you earlier, when I write by myself, it comes out country. I'm not really sure why, but that's what happens when I'm alone. And I wrote a song called "Ready to Lose," and the boys helped me work it out, and we brought it down to the Bluebird in Nashville. It was
so
a lot of fun.
exciting.
Yeah,
Good
it was
for
fun.
you.
It was a good experience.
Yeah. Now, who's your favorite band? You guys. And Dr. Smith, tell us too. Who's your favorite band?
Well, I mean,
It always changes.
Fleetwood
Which
Mac,
we-
you know,
Mac
Fleetwood
fan.
Mac.
Yes, you know, I'm a
Gold
huge
Dust Woman,
Fleetwood
that's
Mac,
her
yeah.
nickname, Gold Dust Woman.
Well,
Michael,
Pretenders, and we like a lot
All
of
the
the
bands
same.
from the 70s and 80s that we just
classic rock.
kind of,
Oh yeah.
we listened to, and said that's what I want to do, and
Aspire to play all that
Kim,
stuff.
how about you?
I was a soul and R&B kind of girl, so I was a
nice.
big Earth, Wind and Fire fan for a long time.
Nice, that's
But
good
I like
stuff.
all genres.
It's hard to pinpoint it. There's so much inspiration out there,
Do you enjoy playing Fleetwood Mac the most? Stevie Nicks the most? or-
I love it, but if it's a good song,
You'll play,
it really all depends. But I can't say I enjoy playing one more than the other. There's so much good stuff out there.
So I hear you're going to be at Lynn Auditorium next week,
I am.
playing with Barry Goodrow's Engine Room.
Yes, I am. I'm
Barry
very
Goodrow, the
excited.
former Boston.
Yeah, Barry was formerly
Member.
in the band Boston.
Yep.
And I was, music families meet and kind of, join up. And there's a friend of ours who is friends with another, and who I got to meet Brian Mays a couple of years ago. And I started working on my piano chops with him. And he asked me to do backups on this record with my friend Terry and his wife Mary Beth, and then I was in the band. I didn't even know. I didn't know that I was in the
Rock star,
band,
you're a
but
rock star right
I was
there.
in the band,
Yeah.
and we had our CD release last April, and the album is called Full Steam Ahead. Barry
Steam
Goodrow
Ahead.
Engine Room, and we have a big show on Friday, the 26th, at the Lynn Auditorium.
Gosh.
With the Stompers are opening for us,
The
and Charlie
Stompers.
Farron. Yeah, it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a lot of
Now,
fun.
how many people does the Lynn Auditorium hold?
I don't know, maybe, it's more than 500. I want to say it's 1,000 maybe, but I should know that, but I'm not sure. So we're trying to, but you can get your tickets on
Okay,
Lynn Auditorium
definitely,
website.
definitely. And what other famous rock stars have you met?
Have I met?
And that goes to Dr. Smith.
Well, next to Mike.
Besides Mike.
Yeah, right.
No,
And Barry Goodrow. And
Barry
Brian Mays.
Barry probably is the biggest rock star I've met. I really haven't. I wish. Stevie Nicks is on my
That's
bucket list.
on your bucket list.
She's on my bucket
Okay.
list. Yeah,
Anyone
just
else
once.
meet anyone in band?
Just because I was really into jazz, I met at Berkeley and other places a lot of really famous jazz musicians. So,
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Very
That's
cool.
great.
I wish I'm working on it, Kathy. I'm working on it.
And what's the best thing and the worst thing about being in a band?
Well, I mean, I was listening to Kim, and I thought, it's along the same lines that when you're on stage, you always have to be on, no matter if you're sick, if you had a fight with your spouse, if you're whatever, you have to be. Nobody has to know that you need to be smiling and
Game
at your
face.
best. Yeah,
Yep.
you have to have your game
Yep.
face on.
Yep.
And you're doing what you love. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that's
Yeah.
probably the best thing. It's a passion. If it's a passion,
Right.
you don't think about it. You just do it, and you can have good nights and bad nights, but
The
you
best
still
thing is the good nights.
Yeah, I
you're
was
still
gonna
going to do
say.
it.
The
Yeah.
good nights are the best,
Yeah.
We'll call each other and how was it? My God, it was great. Or whatever. That's the best thing, I think. And our camaraderie, I think. Our
Right.
family, our music family I had surgery last year, and they were all there for me. Picking up the slack and filling in for gigs that I had booked, and we're all there for each other.
That's terrific.
Probably don't
which is-
laugh as hard either. When we're together, whether it's us two or everybody, it's
Yeah,
just
it doesn't
constant.
matter. We're all comedians.
And who are the other band members? Let's talk about
Well, Paul, who
Paul
is working
Shaba?
hard today, Paul Shaba,
Okay.
Wakefield boy. And our lineup that we had on New Year's Eve was Ray Zirkle, who used to play with the class of '66.
Oh,
So did Michael, actually,
And a lot
for
of shows
a while.
on the
Yeah.
lake.
Yeah,
They
he
were
did a lot of
great,
those.
yeah.
Remember, going to see those shows
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the
on the
bandstand.
bandstand.
The
Bandstand,
right down here. at the
And
lake,
he
yeah.
played for them for 20 years.
Oh my God,
And
that
he
was a
still
great
plays
band.
in this area. And Michael and Bob Torelli, who is he's a music teacher up in Marblehead. But there's so many. I also have another duo with Mike Walsh, who is from Reading, called Two for the Road, and If you want to work full time, you have to have a couple of
Different
projects going.
things going on. Now, what
Yeah.
other venues do you guys play in other than Lynn Auditorium?
They get smaller from there, Kathy. Michael and I play a lot of the same places, but here in Wakefield, I play at Harrington. We're a staple at
Harrington's.
Harrington's a couple times a month, and Artichokes. And I mean, we play up in Maine as
Mike's
well.
Clam Shack.
Yeah, at the Clam Shack.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm trying to think, Calitri's and Danvers.
Oh, yeah.
and,
I saw you there
Yeah.
with my
Oh,
friends.
that's right.
Yep.
That's right. You
Yep.
guys came up.
Yeah.
So that but Michael plays in different places too.
Up at Hampton Beach in the summer.
Yeah, that's fun.
A lot of the same.
They don't let me
A lot
in
of the same
there.
places.
Oh,
No, it's all right. I'm working it out in therapy. It'll be good.
That's not true.
No, he does a lot of. You just started at the Sea Catch, right? Like last summer.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This will be my
yeah,
third
there's-
year.
it's a lot of places to play.
yeah. And do you guys have day jobs?
You want to
No.
field that, Michael?
I don't know.
He doesn't.
I drove a canteen truck for the longest time, but I stopped about this last spring.
He's done with
And now it's
that.
just music, and it's nice to be able to concentrate just on music and
Right.
develop your own material because you have the time to do it now, which is
Right,
always a
I
problem
don't
before.
really.
No.
I'm Joni Brown Ciccatelli, and I work for Ciccatelli and Ciccatelli during the day. That's what I do.
Well, that's great.
So
And where can people find you online for your schedule? Like, where can they? What's your
there's a
website?
bunch of places actually. Michael has his own website.
I have my own, michaelmazzola.com,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
and
Yeah.
my schedule and everything's on there. Same with her. Everybody has kind of their own.
Yeah, we all have our own stuff, but we try to link them all together. But we have coolchangemusic.com is the original, and then I just actually brought up my website over the past year. It's jonichiccatelli.com.
Oh, good.
So all
Okay.
of my projects are on there.
Great.
You know.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming on the show today.
Oh,
I
thanks
appreciate
for
your
having us.
time. And we're going to cut to an original song that Cool Change did, and it's going to be on at the end of our broadcast today. And again, thank you, guests, for being on. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Talk of the Town.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I want a man who thinks the sun rises and sets on me. I want a man who loves me for who I am, knows me better than anyone else, knows how I take my coffee. It's gotta be sweet, it's gotta make me laugh, and my God, it would help if he is fun. Ready to lose control of my heart. Now over the years, all the men that I've met have just lied to me. They hold me close and whisper in my ear, tell me what I want to hear, so they can make some time with me. But life is enough, I can't take anymore, and it's time I make a new start. I'm ready to lose control of my heart. Love's concerned, I've had the guns standing at the gate. 'Cause I've been hurt too many times, and now I've lost my patience. I took a vow that if the right man should come along, I'd unlock the gate, pay the most, and this big old bad God's home. Love's concerned, I've had the guards standing at the gate. 'Cause I've been hurt too many times, and now I've lost my patience. I took a vow that if the right man should come along, I'd lock the gate, pay that voice, and this big old bad guard's home. don't you ask to have a man that I really love? Not to settle for less, only want the best. It gives me shooting stars, butterflies. Do you think he exists? I try to be patient, but I'm all out. Now all I can do is just shout. Ready to lose control of my heart. So ready to lose control of my heart. Ready to lose control of my mind.